From the moment Henry VIII became King of England, nothing about his reign was ordinary. He was a man driven by power, legacy, and desire. A king who would change religion, defy the Pope, and rewrite the fate of his nation, all in pursuit of the heir he believed he deserved. Henry ascended the throne as a confident young ruler, eager to secure his dynasty. His first marriage was to Catherine of Aragon, a noblewoman of Spanish royalty. They spent many years together, and there was love, respect, and hope. But in all those years, Catherine never gave Henry a male heir. Instead, she bore daughters, and only one survived, Princess Mary. This lack of a son frustrated Henry deeply. In his eyes, England needed a male ruler, a continuation of his bloodline. But Catherine could not give him that. So Henry began to question everything he had been taught, including the authority of the church itself. Henry asked the Pope to annul his marriage to Catherine. He claimed it was unlawful, that God had punished him for marrying his brother's widow. But the Pope refused. What happened next would change history. Henry broke from the Roman Catholic Church and declared himself the supreme head of the Church of England. Suddenly, he had the power to annul his own marriage. Just like that, England's religion was reshaped. All because one king wanted a son. Once free from Catherine, Henry turned his eye to Anne Boleyn, a woman who was not content to be a secret lover, and made it clear she wanted to be his wife, not his mistress. Henry pursued her relentlessly. Against all odds, he married her, hoping she would finally give him the male heir he desperately wanted, and did give Henry a child, but it was a daughter, Elizabeth. The joy of a newborn was overshadowed by the absence of a son. Their marriage became strained, and Henry's patience wore thin. Court gossip swelled, and accusations followed, and was charged with infidelity, treason, and even plotting against the king. In a shocking turn of events, Anne was executed, her life ending on the very scaffold where queens were meant to stand tall. Henry's search for a male heir did not end there. Soon after Anne's death, he married Jane Seymour, a gentle and quiet woman. Jane was nothing like the bold Anne Boleyn. She was calm, obedient, and devoted. With Jane, Henry finally got the son he always wanted, Prince Edward. For the first time in years, Henry felt peace. But happiness was cruelly short-lived. Jane died shortly after giving birth, her life claimed by the complications of childbirth. Henry grieved her loss deeply. She was the only wife he ever truly mourned.
Not long after Jane Seymour's death, Henry's quest for another wife brought him to Anne of Cleves, a noblewoman from Germany. Their marriage was arranged through portraits and letters, carefully planned to secure an alliance. But when Henry finally met Anne in person, he was shocked. She did not match the ideal he had imagined. He described her as plain and unimpressive, a disappointment after all the anticipation. Within months, the marriage was annulled. Anne returned to England's court, living comfortably and respected, far from the dangers that had claimed her predecessors. Henry, meanwhile, remained relentless in his search for a wife who could captivate him and, ideally, provide the male heir he had been seeking for so long. His next choice was Catherine Howard, a young and spirited woman, almost like a fresh wind at court. Her youth and beauty enchanted Henry at first, but hidden secrets would soon lead to her downfall. Catherine had past relationships that were considered scandalous, and even during her marriage, whispers of inappropriate behavior reached the king. In Henry's eyes, this was betrayal. Just like Anne Boleyn, Catherine was accused of treason. The evidence was enough for her execution, and her life ended tragically on the scaffold, a stark warning to all who dared to defy the king. After Catherine Howard's death, Henry finally married Catherine Parr, a widow of noble birth known for her intelligence and tact. She brought stability to the royal court and proved to be a wise companion in the final years of Henry's life. Catherine Parr outlived Henry, ensuring she was the only wife to survive him. Henry's multiple marriages were more than matters of the heart. They reshaped the English monarchy, altered religious structures, and left an indelible mark on history. His relentless pursuit of a male heir, coupled with his bold and often ruthless decisions, made him a figure of awe, fear, and fascination. The consequences of his actions went beyond the palace walls, influencing politics, religion, and the lives of millions across England.
Henry's life was defined not only by his marriages but by the intense political and religious upheavals that accompanied them. Each wife brought a new chapter of influence, alliances, and danger. Catherine of Aragon's devotion contrasted sharply with Henry's growing impatience for a son, which led to the creation of the Church of England, forever altering the religious landscape of the nation. Anne Boleyn's ambition and intelligence introduced intrigue and scandal into the court, as her every move was scrutinized, leading eventually to her tragic execution. Jane Seymour's gentle nature and ability to give. Henry, his long-desired son, offered him a brief period of peace, yet her early death reminded him that even joy could be fleeting. Henry's annulment of Anne of Cleves' marriage demonstrated his assertive control over politics and appearances. Although Anne lived comfortably afterward, the king's decisiveness showed no mercy to the ambitions of those around him. Catherine Howard's youthful allure initially captivated Henry, but hidden secrets and indiscretions proved fatal. Her execution highlighted the strict moral and political expectations of the court, and the ruthless efficiency with which Henry maintained his authority. Catherine Parr's intelligence and tact helped guide Henry's final years, bringing stability after decades of drama and danger. Each of these women left an imprint on Henry, shaping his decisions and influencing the history of England. Beyond the personal tragedies, Henry's actions had profound effects on the monarchy and the nation. His pursuit of a male heir drove reforms, led to executions, and caused religious upheaval that would ripple for centuries. Henry's story demonstrates how power, desire, and ambition can intersect with personal life to reshape a nation's history in ways that are both fascinating and terrifying. The intricate relationships, betrayals, and alliances at court created a world where every choice had enormous consequences. Henry's life shows us a king whose personal obsessions dictated the political and religious fate of an entire country. A king whose name still echoes through history, both revered and feared.
As Henry grew older, the physical and emotional toll of his life became increasingly visible. Once a vibrant and athletic king, he transformed into a man burdened by pain, illness, and regret. His leg injury, which never properly healed, left him in constant discomfort, affecting not only his health but also his temper. Those closest to him noticed the change. His patience grew thinner, his anger sharper, and his decisions more unpredictable. The court, once a place of charm and celebration, became a space filled with caution and fear. Every word, every action could be interpreted as loyalty or betrayal. Advisors and nobles walked carefully around the king, aware that one wrong move could cost them everything. Despite achieving what he once desired, a male heir in Prince Edward, Henry's sense of security never truly settled. The kingdom he reshaped was still adjusting to the massive religious changes he had enforced. The break from Rome had not only altered faith, but had also redistributed power and wealth, creating new tensions across England. Monasteries were dissolved, lands were seized, and traditional structures were dismantled, leaving both opportunity and instability in their wake. Catherine Parr played a crucial role during this period, not just as a companion but as a stabilizing force. She was well educated and had a deep understanding of religious matters, often engaging in intellectual discussions that few others dared to have with the king. Her ability to remain calm and diplomatic helped her survive in an environment where others had failed. However, even she was not entirely safe. At one point, she came dangerously close to being arrested due to her religious views, but through careful persuasion and humility, she managed to regain Henry's favor. This moment highlighted just how fragile life at court truly was. Henry's later years were marked by reflection, though not necessarily by remorse. He continued to assert his authority, ensuring that his legacy would endure beyond his lifetime. Laws were enforced, alliances maintained, and the structure of his kingdom reinforced under his watchful eye. Yet beneath the surface there was a sense that the man who once sought control over everything was now facing the limits of his own power. Time, unlike kings or kingdoms, could not be commanded.
In the final chapter of Henry's life, the weight of everything he had done began to settle in ways that could no longer be ignored. The king who once stood as a symbol of strength and control now faced the reality of his own mortality, surrounded by wealth, power, and a legacy that had reshaped an entire nation. Henry was no longer the unstoppable force he had once been. His body weakened, his movements slowed, and the court that once revolved around his every word began to prepare for a future without him. Prince Edward, the long-awaited heir, represented hope for continuity, but also uncertainty. He was still young, and the kingdom he would inherit was vastly different from the one Henry had received. The religious transformation, the redistribution of power, and the lingering tensions among nobles and advisors meant that England's future was far from stable. Henry had achieved his goal, but at a cost that would echo for generations. The stories of his 6 wives became more than personal tales of love and tragedy. They became symbols of ambition, sacrifice, and the dangers of absolute power. Catherine of Aragon represented loyalty and endurance. Anne Boleyn became a symbol of ambition and downfall. Jane Seymour was remembered for giving the king his heir, yet losing her life in the process. Anne of Cleves stood as a rare example of survival and adaptation. Catherine Howard embodied youth and the consequences of hidden truths, and Catherine Parr showed that intelligence and caution could overcome even the most dangerous circumstances. Together, their lives formed a narrative that continues to fascinate historians and audiences alike. Henry VIII died in the year 1547, leaving behind a kingdom forever changed. His actions had broken traditions, challenged authority, and created a new path for England. But perhaps the most lasting impact of his reign was not just in politics or religion, but in the stories that still captivate us today. A king who had everything, yet was never truly satisfied. A ruler who controlled a nation but could not control fate. And a legacy built on choices that remind us how powerful and how dangerous human desire can be.